Okay, hello and welcome. Today we're going to be reading the US Constitution, mainly because of the fact that the last time that I read this thing, I was in high school, and at the time, English was still my second language. So I did not understand 99.9% of what we were reading in class. And I think it's pretty important for people who live in the United States to, at the very least, read the US Constitution one time in their life. So this is going to be the one time that I'm going to read the US Constitution. Hopefully, actually, I'll hopefully be referring to this more often than not, more often than not, etc., etc. But probably this is going to be the one time that I'm going to sit down and like really read through it and try to analyze it. So I thought, why not turn this into a video series so that you can join along and hopefully maybe you can learn some things with me as I learn them as well. And the big reason why I wanted to do this is because I wanted to actually do a video on the amendments. I wanted to do a video on the U.S. constitutional amendments, and I figured that it would be probably a good idea to first do a video of the Constitution itself before we went into the amendments. So this series is going to be around the U.S. Constitution specifically, being that there are a lot of amendments. It's probably going to be a second playlist or a second series where we will go through each individual amendment. But this particular series is dedicated just to the U.S. Constitution and its 7 articles. So without further ado, let's jump into article number 1. All right, so here we go. This is the Constitution of the United States, and the note right here says the following text is a transcription of the Constitution as it was inscribed, by Jacob Challis on the parchment. The document is on display at the Rotunda at the National Archives Museum, and the spelling and punctuation reflect the original. Let me prepare myself for reading so that I don't mumble through this thing. Okay, here we go. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. Whew. Here we go. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Article 1, Section 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. So, there we go. We're just establishing the Senate and the House of Representatives. Section 2. The House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the people of several states, and the electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislature. Okay? So, the House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every 2 years by the people of several states, and the electors in each state shall have the qualification requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislature. So they need to have the qualification requisite of the most saturated branch of that legislature, essentially. So it's like whatever the majority require, the qualifications need to meet that majority requirement. No person shall be a representative who shall not have attained to the age of 25 years, so you got to be 25 years older, and been 7 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of the state in which he shall be chosen. So no person can be a rep if you haven't been 25 years old. If you're not at least 25 years old, you have to be a citizen for at least 7 years. So this doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be U.S. born. You just got to be a citizen for 7 years. And who cannot or shall not when elected. So if you're elected, you can't be an inhabitant of the state in which you are chosen. Isn't that interesting? So if you're elected, you can't inhabit the state that you've been elected for. Now, I don't know if this is going to be amended later, but that's a very interesting thing that they've put here. So very cool. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned, of course, taxes. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding the whole number of free persons, including those bound to a service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. Okay, let's do that one more time. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union. So, representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states. So, this is being, written at a time. I don't know how many, I'll Google it later, but there were, however many states at the time that this was written. And the representatives for each state and the direct taxes for each state is going to be apportioned, which may be included within this union, so within whatever they're uniting right now, according to their respective numbers, okay, which shall be determined by adding the whole number of free people, the whole number of free people, okay? You gotta register this. The whole number of free people, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. This is, like, the nuances in these words are very powerful, and it takes you to the time that this was written. It's interesting. The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States, and within every subsequent term of 10 years, in such a manner as they shall law direct. The number of representatives shall not exceed 1 for every 30,000, but each state shall have at least 1 representative until such enumeration shall be made. The state of New Hampshire shall be entitled to choose 3, Massachusetts 8, Rhode Island and Providence 1. Okay, they're just doing their thing at the time, okay? When vacancies have a representation from any state, the executive authority thereof shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies, okay? The House of Representatives shall choose their speaker and other officers and shall have the sole power of impeachment. Interesting. I wonder if this is going to be amended later. But this is essentially saying that the House of Representatives for whatever that state is shall choose their speaker and other officers, and they have the only power of impeaching. So no federal authority can impeach a state representative. Okay, Section 3. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, chosen by the legislature thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. Okay? Immediately after they shall be assembled in consequence of the first election, they shall be divided as equally as may be into 3 classes. So immediately after they shall be assembled in consequence of the first election, they shall be divided as equally as may be into 3 classes. Okay? The seats of the senators of the first class shall be vacated at the expiration of the second year, of the second class at the 4th year, the third class at the 6th year, so that one may be chosen every 2nd year. Okay? And if vacancies happen by resignation or otherwise during the recess of the legislature of any state, this feels like it's more like the nuanced details of election for senators. No person shall be senator who shall not have attained the age of 30 years. The Vice President of the U.S. shall be President of the Senate. The Vice President of the United States shall be President of the Senate, but shall have no vote unless they can be equally divided. Interesting. The Vice President is a President of the Senate, but shall have no vote unless they be equally divided. Interesting. The Senate shall choose their other officers, and also President pro tempore in the absence of the Vice President, or when he shall exercise the office of President in the United States. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, etc. The party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law. Okay? So Section 4, the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. but the Congress may at the time of law make or alter such regulations except as to places of choosing senators. Okay. And they shall assemble once every year, and such meeting shall be on the first Monday in December, unless there shall be law point on a different day. Okay, so we are, again, just these are not assuming the amendments, if there are any amendments, and I'm not foreshadowing any amendments for any of these sections. I'm just kind of making a note for myself mentally, just in case, because some of these things, especially if it's hyperlinked the way that it is, I'm like, oh, maybe this was amended later. But okay, so section 5, each house shall be the judge of the elections, return, and qualifications of its own members, and a majority of each shall constitute a quorum to do business, but a smaller number may adjourn from day to day and may be authorized to compel the attendance of absent members in such manner and under such penalties as each house may provide. Interesting. Okay. Each house, okay, just in case, so each house shall be the judge of the elections, returns, and qualifications of its own members, and a majority of each shall constitute a quorum to do business. But a smaller number, so a majority of each shall constitute a quorum to do business, to actually enact the election, return, qualification, etc. But a smaller number may adjourn from day to day and may be authorized to compel the attendance of the absent members in such a manner and under such penalties as each house may provide, which I'm guessing we're about to disclose. Each house may determine the rules of its proceedings, punish its members for disorderly behavior, and within the concurrence of 2/3 expel a member. With the concurrence of 2/3, so you only need 2/3 concur, and that may be even present or non-present, whatever. If you have 2/3 to concur, they can expel a member. Each house shall keep a journal of its proceedings and from time to time publish the same, excepting such parts as may in their judgment require secrecy. And the yeas and nays of the members of either house on any question shall, at the desire of 1/5 of those present, be entered on the journal. Okay, interesting. So again, one more time, let's read it slowly. Each house shall keep a journal of its own proceedings, and from time to time publish the same, so publishing the journal, excepting such parts as, of course, the judgments that require secrecy, and the yeas and nays of the members of either house on any question shall, at the desire of 1/5 of those present, be entered on the journal. So if 1/5 of the people who are present can say, yes, we want this to be entered, then they can enter the yeas and nays. Interesting. Neither house during the session of Congress shall, without the consent of other, adjourn for more than 3 days. Okay, interesting. They're very nuanced details, and I guess you have to put these things on writing, especially at a time when, the only form of documentation was a parchment. Okay, here we go. The senators and representatives, section 6. The senators and representatives shall receive a compensation for their services. To be ascertained by law and paid out of the Treasury of the United States. They shall in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of the peace be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses, and in going to and returning for the same, and for any speech or debate in either house, they shall not be questioned in any other place. Wow, no senator or representative shall, during the time for which he was elected, be appointed to any civil office under the authority of the United States, which shall have been created, or the emoluments whereof shall have been increased during such time, and no person holding any office under the United States shall be a member of either house during his continuance in office. Okay, this is a very interesting section right here. So, okay, the senators and representatives shall receive compensation, so they get paid for their service, to be ascertained by law and paid out of the Treasury of the United States. So they're being paid out of the U.S. Treasury. They shall in all cases, except treason, felony, and breach of the peace, be privileged from arrest during their attendance. And you got to understand, except for treason, felony, and breach of the peace, which are, it gives a lot of freedom, because those things are very specific, and you can't be a felon. I'm not going to go into the details of those things. But apart from those, essentially anything else that you do is privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses, and going and returning for the same. And for any speech or debating in the house, they shall not be questioned in any other place. Okay, fair enough. Now I understand why people would want to become a senator. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, I mean, you get some perks out here. No senator or representatives. I knew they would get paid, but I mean, it's in the law where it's like, yeah, you're privileged. Okay, anyways. No senator or representative shall, during the time for which he was elected, be appointed to any civil office under the authority of the United States, which shall have been created, or the emoluments whereof shall have been increased during the time no person. This I really don't understand, mainly because of the fact that I don't know what the heck the word emoluments means, and I don't want to Google it right now to take us off track. So, but that first paragraph was pretty interesting. Okay, Section 7. All bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. Every bill which shall have passed the House of Representatives and the Senate shall, before it becomes a law, be presented to the President of the United States. If he approves and sign it, but if he does not return, if not, he shall return it with his objections to that house in which they have originated, who shall enter the objections at large on their journal and proceed to reconsider it. If after reconsideration, or if after such reconsideration, 2/3 of that house shall agree to pass the bill, it should be sent together with the objections to the other house, by which it can likewise be reconsidered. And if approved by 2/3 of that house, it shall become a law. But in such cases, the votes of both houses shall be determined by yeas and nays, and the names of the persons voting for and against the bill shall be entered on the journal of each house respectively. If any bill shall not be returned by the President within 10 days after it shall have been presented to him, the same shall be a law. So if the President doesn't automatically return it within 10 days, it becomes a law in like manner as if he had signed it, unless the Congress by their adjournment prevents its return, in which case it shall not be a law. Every order, resolution, or vote to which the concurrence of the Senate and the House of Representatives may be necessary, except on a question of adjournment, shall be presented to the President of the United States, and before the same shall take effect, shall be approved by him, or being disapproved by him, shall be repassed by 2/3 of the Senate and the House of Representatives, according to the rules and limitations prescribed in the case of a bill. This was one freaking sentence. Let's go through that one more time. So every order, resolution, or vote to which the concurrence of the Senate and House may be necessary, except on a question of adjournment, shall be presented to the President of the President, and before the same shall take effect, shall be approved by him or being disapproved by him, shall be repassed by 2/3 of the Senate and the House of Reps. So let's go back. Every order or vote that concurrence of the Senate may be necessary shall be presented to the President, and before it takes effect, has to be approved or disapproved, and should be repassed by the Senate, or 2/3 of the Senate and the House, according to the U.S., and be prescribed in the case of a bill, according to the rules and the regulations prescribed in the case of a bill. So, this is all of the absolute steps that you need to take according to the current version. We haven't read any amendments, but this is what you got to do to get your stuff passed if you want to get your bill turned into a law. Okay. Section 8, the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, and imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. To borrow money on the credit of the United States, to regulate commerce within foreign nations, among the several states and within the Indian tribes, to establish an uniform rule of naturalization, uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States, to coin money, regulate the value thereof, and foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and the measures, to provide for punishment of counterfeiting securities and current coin of the United States, to establish post offices and post roads, to promote the progress to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. These are powerful. This is probably one of the biggest reasons why people immigrate to the United States, to promote the progress of science and art by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. This is one of the biggest reasons why people migrate to the United States. To constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. Wow. To define and punish piracies and felonies committed in the high seas and offenses against the law of the nations. To declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules of concerning captures on land and water. To raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for longer term than 2 years. Very, very interesting. I wonder if this gets amended. To raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. So you can use federal money to raise and support armies as long as you do it less than 2 years. To provide and maintain a navy, to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces, to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. To provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states, respectively, the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square, as may by session of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state, in which the same shall be for the erection of forts. For the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings, and to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by the Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or office thereof. This specific section is a badass section. There's a lot of meat in this section. So the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide the common defense and general welfare of the United States. This is such a vague freaking sentence, and it leaves so much room for, I'm drawing a blank on the word, but for people to read it and come to their own conclusions. It leaves a lot of room for somebody to literally come to their own conclusion when reading something like this and say, okay, this is what I think this means and this is what I think that means. I can't believe I'm spacing on the word. But yeah, this is a very, very vague sentence, and it's like the beginning of all of this stuff. So it goes. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. So that means that it has to be the same, right? Everybody gets effed the same way, basically. So number one, to borrow money on the credit of the U.S. So if you want to borrow money from the government, it's the same rate, right? They call that the prime rate. So the prime rate, this is essentially where we're getting the idea of the prime rate, getting money from the U.S. To regulate commerce with foreign nations, right? So import, export, and among the several states and within the Indian tribes, I guess, and they fall under the category of import, export with foreign nations. So very interesting. To establish a uniform rule of naturalization, okay, and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies through the United States, okay, to coin money, right? Regulate the value of money and of foreign coins, so our money versus their money, and fix the standard of weights and measures, okay? To provide for the punishment of counterfeiting and securities, or excuse me, to provide the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the U.S. So no currency counterfeiting, no securities counterfeiting. Got it. To establish post offices and post roads to promote progress of science. We talked about that already. To constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. So for somebody to be able to go on trial without having to go to the Supreme Court to be tried. And this leaves a lot of freedom and kind of takes a lot of the weight off of the Supreme Court and leaves them to make the big decisions. And to define and punish piracies and felonies committed in the high seas. That's cool. Actual pirates were around at this time, and I'm sure they're still around now. And offenses against the law of nations, okay, to declare war, grant letters of mark and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. So this goes hand in hand with this specific one right here. So if you captured somebody, declaring war, granting letters of reprisal, rules concerning the capture, etc., prisoner of war rules, I guess. To raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. To provide and maintain a navy. To make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces. To provide for calling forth militia. Okay, and to execute the laws of the Union. Suppress insurrections and repel invasions. To provide organizing armies and disciplining the army. To exercise exclusive, etc., etc. So pretty meaty section right here. This is a big section. Okay, here we go. Section number 9. The migration or importation of such persons as any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808 by holy cow, this is old. My goodness. Okay. By a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation not exceeding $10 for each person. Okay, let's do this one more time. The migration or importation of such persons as any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by the Congress prior to year 1808. But after year 1808, I guess it can be prohibited by Congress. By a tax or duty But a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation not exceeding $10 for each person. So that means you can import and migrate people prior to the year 1808 to whatever state without Congress meddling with you, and as long as you charge a fee not exceeding $10 for each person. So maximum of $10, and you can import whatever you want, whoever you want. My apologies. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion of public safety may require it. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration here and therefore directed to be taken. And that, I'm guessing, is an amendment later because it's been hyperlinked. No tax or duty shall be laid on articles exported from any state. No preference. This is that's not true at all. They do this all the time. What are you guys talking about? No preference shall be given by any regulation of commerce or revenue of the ports of one state over those of another. Nor shall vessels bound to or from one state be obliged to enter, clear, or pay any duties in another. No money shall be drawn from the treasury, but in the consequences of appropriation made by law, and a regular statement of account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from. This is all. Even though this is written, they cook the books, man. The documents that come out are not the real documents. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States. It's kind of a random place to place this. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office or of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind from any king, prince, or foreign state. Okay. This is like declaration specifically against any, state that has a royalty system. So Again, very interesting place to put this, Section 9. Section 10, and we're about to come to the end of our first article. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold or silver a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law impairing the obligations of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Whew. No state shall, without the consent of the Congress, lay any imposts or duties on export to without absolutely necessary for executing its inspection laws, and the net produce of all duties and imposts laid by any state or imports of exports shall be for the use of the Treasury of the United States, and all such laws shall be subject to the revision and control of the United States. No state shall, without the consent of the Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war unless actually invaded, so unless you're invaded, or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. So unless you're actually being invaded, if your state is being attacked. Now tell that to Texas, because if you go to Texas, you know what I'm saying, they got troops in Texas. Okay, so this was Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. And, as far as articles are concerned, I haven't established a country or anything. But if I were to establish a country, I would say, the first article should probably, divide the segments of the country, the different sections of the country, and declare them to be what they are and give them their rules. And this is how you guys can manage your representatives and how to declare your representatives, etc. Give them some own internal power of how they can function, but also give them their overarching, these are the federal rules for each state and what a state is and how a state can act, and you guys got to pay us taxes, right? Pay me my money. Of course, Uncle Sam needs his cash. And so, at the very, very, very beginning, when they established the Constitution, they declared all of that stuff. So this was Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, very, very meaty article. And we are about to jump into Article 2.